Hello guys, it's Ryan Ho back with another video. Today we actually have 5 IEMs on the table. They're all from the same manufacturers, Ziigaat, and they all have the same cable, they all have the same tips, but I'm going to crown which one I think is the best, and one of these is actually one of the best I've ever heard. And actually 3 of these are actually YouTuber IEMs. So we have this one by HBB, it's the Arcadia, it's the newest one on the table, and this one, has a lot of bass. This guy really likes a lot of bass. We have the Odyssey. This is the new Ziigaat one as well, and honestly, it looks really cool. It has this nice kind of purple and I guess white type of half aesthetic. It's also a very good sounding IM. And then we have the Arete right here, which is by Freshreview and another YouTuber. And then we also have the Estrella, which is done by Jay. So we'll be comparing these kind of 3 YouTuber IEMs and picking the one I like the most out of the 3. And then we're gonna pick the best one out of all of these 5 on the table. And then we have the Dos Cinco here, which is another just generic one by Ziigaat, right? So now without further ado, let's just kind of do a big comparison and then see which one comes out on top. All right, so let's deep dive into the IEM. So the first thing I want to cover is, I guess, just the build. You can look at one of them and all of them are exactly the same. So they all come with this case and then this nice case. They come with different tips, but essentially you get these yellow tips. You also get these kind of foam tips as well. They kind of fit and conform to your ear. And they all come with the same exact tips, so the same exact case, with the same exact shell, with the same exact black cable, except for this, the Cinco has like a brown one, but basically the same cables, right? And then the actual fit, they all have this kind of name on it as well on the back with this type of fit. I've been using the medium tips for all of them as well, so the same tip that I tested. And honestly, the fit of this is really comfortable. I have no issues with it. It's a really nice size. They all actually have different kind of drivers inside and different configurations, but everything else about them is the same. But honestly, I find them to be very comfortable in general. The tips are a little bit fat. I feel like they're a little bit wide on the medium size, and on the small size they're a little bit thin. So I do wish they had a more perfectly fitting type of tip for me, but without further ado, the first, I guess, 2 new ones that I haven't reviewed so far is the HBB Arcadia by a YouTuber, and then this one is the Odyssey, right? And this YouTuber IEM by HBB, I've watched a lot of this guy's videos, and I can tell that this guy likes bass, and he doesn't like too much like airy, too bright of a headphone, right, or IEM. And this thing really encapsulates his type of sound. I think it honestly sounds exactly like how I expected it to. And after even looking at it, how it actually measures, it sounds exactly like something that he would enjoy. So this thing has a lot of bass. I think the bass is a little bit too thick for me, and there's definitely a lot of bass, and it's just a lot of sub bass and just mid bass in general. So this really is I think basically a bass head's IEM. Honestly, you get a lot of that bass, and when it comes to the mid-range, I feel like that's the thing that this one does the best. You hear a lot of the mid-range, a lot of the vocals sound really good if they're kind of in, I guess the middle or the high upper mids, I guess, at most. But beyond that, I would say the treble gets a little bit dark on this IEM. So if you're looking for a lot of airy type of sound, or a lot of sparkle, that type of sound, a lot of the treble, a lot of the string instruments do sound just, slightly muted in my opinion because of that reduced treble. But of course, this is a type of signature that this guy likes. So I feel like it does that really well. So if you're looking for a very bassy type of IEM, this one does that really, really well. Now, the new contender on the table, which honestly I think this one, spoiler, is my favorite one. This is the Odyssey, and this one has a different configuration. This one has 4 drivers, 1 dynamic driver and 3 BA drivers that uses the American Knowles drivers. And I just find that, like, at least comparing all the IEMs, I do like these American Knoll drivers a lot. There's different versions and different ones of each one, but I think they do perform really, really well. The HBV one actually had 1 dynamic driver and 2 BA drivers. They're different ones that also use Knowles drivers, which honestly do sound pretty detailed. But the thing that I notice, at least when I'm comparing these 2 together, is that they're actually very similar when you look at a graph, but when you actually listen to it, the bass on this one sounds cleaner to me personally. It doesn't sound as overly thick as it does on the HBB. So I think the bass itself just sounds cleaner and just more punchier and just clearer overall, in my opinion. And then the treble of this is also just a lot better, in my opinion. And maybe it can be a little too bright in some scenarios, but I feel like in general it sounds very airy, very nice. All the notes have a nice finishing to them and they sound really good. And the mid-range itself is also not pushed back. You get a very present mid-range just like you do on the HBB. So in a lot of ways, I just feel like the Odyssey is just a better HBB for me personally, just for the type of sound that I'm looking for. It's just the type of sound I'm looking for is really just a very natural, clean, and clear type of sound, to be honest. And this one does that really well while still maintaining a really, really fun, punchy bass. So this thing really kind of does everything. It's very much the all-rounder, I guess, on this table, and definitely the one that I like the most. Now, let's talk about the other ones on this table. So I've already reviewed all of these. If you want extensive ones, then you guys can look at those videos. But the Arete is probably my favorite of the YouTuber IEMs. This one does really, really well. This one is, done by Freshreview. He's a gaming kind of enthusiast, I guess. So he really likes his IEMs for gaming and for competitive gaming specifically. So if you like to play a lot of competitive games, this one is it. But even beyond that, I think for just music listening, I actually do prefer this one over the HBB as well as the Estrella, just because I really like a lot of vocals, a lot of mid-range. This thing does that really, really well while maintaining a really, really nice bass. And then the treble of this is just very, very, I guess, it's never bright. You'll definitely hear a lot of maybe the upper mids, so like a little bit of their vocals, but it never gets too like piercing bright or anything like that. It's a very, very nice and comfortable to listen to IEM that you can really kind of listen to for long gaming sessions, but even in long music sessions, I think it does really well at highlighting the vocals. So this is definitely, I would say, my favorite YouTuber IEM, right? My second favorite is the Estrella. I feel like this one definitely has enough treble for me. I like the treble, I like the bass of it. The only part about it is I feel like the mid-range is not as forward enough for me. I really like my vocalist to be kind of the center point of my music, and I feel like for this IEM, the vocalist is kind of pushed back a little bit in favor of, I guess, the soundstage effect of having the vocalist push back. I'm not really the biggest fan of that, but overall, I do think this one is better than the HBB for me, or the HBB, I guess, is the opposite of it. The HBB is just kind of more darker and bassier. I think it's a little overly bassy for me personally and overly dark for me. So that's why I feel like the Estrella is a little bit better. And the other thing I like about the Estrella too, I mean, this one doesn't really matter that much, but I think the shell is really cool. I really like how the guy kind of had the stars kind of, line around the kind of shell. So I feel like that's a unique take that this one has that is better than the rest of the IEMs. And I think if Ziigaat actually put this type of effect on a lot of their other IEMs, they'd be even more popular and really, really, really cool. So I feel like that's a really cool effect on that. And then of course HBB would be my third one. I think this one, if you were a bass head, you'll really like this one. I still think the vocals are still pretty clear in the lower regions of it, but in the highest regions of it, it just sounds a little bit muted for me. And then lastly, the Dos Cinco. I feel like the Dos Cinco just very V-shaped, so you're not having a lot of the mid-range, you're getting a lot of the bass and a lot of the treble, but I'm still missing a lot of the vocals, and I would like it to be pushed forward more, so that's why it doesn't really score that high personally. But, I still think it is a pretty good IEM, but for sure, the best one on the table goes to the Odyssey. And I feel like the Odyssey for me, solidly number one. I feel like compared to the Arete, which I would say would be my number two, I would say the difference between these is that I would say the Arete is probably a little bit better if you don't want too much treble, while I feel like the Odyssey depending on the tips and how they kind of conform to your ear, they could sound slightly bright to you. But I feel like you're rewarded with just honestly a very, very natural type of sound. The musician sounds just like they're in front of you. You sound like you're just presently, you're just there. Honestly, they really are tuned so, so well. And I feel like the biggest difference between these two is probably the bass, honestly. I feel like the Ziigaat Odyssey bass just sounds very, very, very just like punchy and clear, and it can do so many things. Like it just sounds very like lively and realistic. I mean, you can feel the bass a lot too, and even in comparison to like the Arete, I feel like it just sounds a little bit cleaner in the bass overall. It seems to be able to play and move a little bit faster and just more cleaner and clear in the bass region. So that's one of the reasons why I picked it over it. And then the second reason is I just think the treble of this one, I don't feel like it's lacking a little bit of air like it is on the Arete. This one just completes the treble for me personally. So I feel like that's the two areas where I feel like it just slightly edges out the Arete for me. And even in gaming, I feel like these two perform really, really similar in gaming, and I would honestly choose either one of them for it. And so, yeah, I think those are basically the reasons why I pick the Odyssey. It's pretty much my perfect IEM, honestly, that I've listened to, especially from Ziigaat. This is definitely easily the best one. And if you're looking for an IEM, then I definitely recommend this one. And if you're looking for a gaming IEM or one that's a little bit more chill, less treble forward, then the Arete is definitely that option. And then the Estrella, I feel like the Estrella is just, I feel like it does that kind of soundstage effect. If you don't want your vocals to be like too forward, you want it to be a little bit further away, then I feel like the Estrella does that really well. And then the HBB, if you're a bass head, I mean, I think that's pretty obvious. Then if you're looking for, I guess, a classic V-shape type of sound, then we go with the Do Cinco. And yeah, the last thing I guess I want to touch on is, I guess, soundstage. I feel like I did notice that for some reason on this Odyssey, the soundstage definitely sounds big and tall and wide. That's something I really do like about this IEM a lot, and it makes it sound really, really, really good. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe down below. Helps my videos out, and I'll see you guys in the next video.